Alright guys, we're going to start a new lesson today, and we are going to do some playful watercoloring. This is our final project in our cross contour series, and for today you're going to need your 9 by 11, I think it's 11, it might be 12, let's double check. It's 9 by 12 paper. Yep, 9 by 12 paper. Okay, so you'll need that. And then you also need your watercolor palette that was in your supplies. You'll need your extra paintbrush that was also in your supplies. You're gonna need to get a cup. Okay. And it doesn't matter what kind of cup, that's kind of up to you. You can get a big solo cup, disposable cup, and then you can use some random paper towels. If you don't have any paper towels, you can use an old washcloth, something you don't want, a t-shirt, something like that. So before we begin, these watercolors come dry. These are all nice and dry. You can take out that little piece of paper, get rid of it. And you get a kind of a cheap brush here. We're not going to be using this brush. It's really not the best brush in the world. We're going to be using this brush that came in your supplies. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to get your water, and you're going to put a little drop of water in each one of these little wells. Just a little drop. Okay, get it going. Okay, and we'll leave it like that. We're going to let it sit for a few minutes. Okay, I've let my watercolor palette with the water in it sit for a few minutes. So let's start to paint. I'm going to grab that paper again. And the only reason why I have tape on here is because it helps me to record your thing. You don't need tape. But what you do need is you need a hard surface, something that you can wipe up in case there's a mess. So you can use your kitchen counter or a desk or a table. This watercolor generally does not stain. It might stain your clothes, so be careful about that. But it won't stain your counter. You can clean it up pretty easily. So you've got this here, and the next thing we're going to do is my brush is inside my water, and I'm going to just dampen my paper. See how I've got water that comes off the edge? That's okay. And I'm going to move that water off so that you know I keep, every time you see my brush go back and forth, that means I'm getting more water. I don't want to make it so wet that it's going to that paper will curl up if I make it too wet. But I'm adding quite a bit of water on here. This watercolor technique that we're doing right now is called giving your paper a wash. We're giving it some water and we're going to give it a wash. Okay? So now what you need to do is have some fun with it. We can take some color, move it off to the edge. If you like red, we can start with red. It's nice and soft now. And with the wash, see how that watercolor just grows and expands because we have a wash on it. You can add more water. And we're going to make this really light. It's called a wash. You want it to be super light. And I like mine going in one direction, but if you want to try and have it go in different directions, you can. So I've got red on mine. So what other color do you want to use with that? I'm going to use yellow. And watch how they mix together. It's going to be really light. You can move it over here, mix it in, mix your colors in together and see what happens. This is really about playing around. So now I've got orange because yellow and red make orange. Add some more orange in there. I'm thinking about a sunrise or a sunset. Okay. And if you wanted to, you could add just a couple dabs of another color in there. So maybe I'll just give it just a slight. Just a little bit. Okay. So that's it for now. And then what I'm gonna do is let this dry completely before you start to draw. You can take some paper towels and you wanna wipe off the extra color on the outside of your palette to clean it up. And then just leave this open and let it dry. Just move that aside and we'll just completely let that dry for a while. Okay, our watercolor has dried, and so now we're getting ready to measure. We're gonna put a 1/2-inch border around this edge. So you start with that measurement that starts at that that white line, and you come into 1/2 inch and make a mark. Come over to the top, line that up, make a mark at 1/2 inch. Okay, then we're going to draw a line that connects those 2 points. Take that ruler, line it up to both edges. This is how you draw your nice straight line. Okay, then we're going to do the line across the bottom and the top. So line that up, make a mark at 1/2 inch. And then same thing over here, 1/2 inch. I'm gonna come over to this edge. 1/2 inch. Okay. So then I'm ready to go all the way across. Same thing down here at the bottom. You can turn your paper over if it's a little bit easier. Then we're going to come in from the edge. Okay, then you erase your extras. Okay, so what you draw on the inside is up to you. If you want to do something that is like this, where it has an actual object, you need to very lightly sketch it, like we did on lesson 7 and 8. So if I wanted to draw a tree, I would very lightly, very lightly draw what it is that I want on the inside of this. Okay, so I would draw what I wanted on the inside of this project first. So that's kind of how to get going with that. Some people chose to do several objects. If you want to do several objects like that, you could certainly do that. If you wanted to do something a little more abstract that had more design, this is an example of something that's more abstract. You could do that. This person did get counted off because they did not finish doing their border line. They needed to go back and finish doing their border line. So make sure you have that. This is an example of one where you can choose to use the actual watercolor marks to start. This is not finished. It still has some work to do. So this is just making creative. You kind of go with the flow. You start with doing lines where you think that the watercolor is, and then you just keep going with that. It's a little bit more creative and a little bit more spontaneous. Here's an example of one that the borderline is not finished on this. Okay, the person did not erase their edges, so they got counted off for that. But they chose to do the lines with the watercolor, the differences in the watercolor. So if you wanted to use that as inspiration, you could. But And then they just kept going from there. They decided which lines they wanted to include, which ones they didn't. And then just kind of had fun with it that way. All right, so I've got my border drawn, and then I have my phone up. I'm gonna actually try and do a picture that incorporates a bicycle a little bit. So what you do is up to you on what you include in your picture. And I haven't done this before with the bicycle, so it'll be kind of new for me. I've got my phone propped up over to my side so I can kind of look at that bike. And I want to make this dynamic. My paper is totally dry. I want to make it look like this bike is kind of going off to the side. And I want to make it look like it's a little bit out of, like bigger than normal. So I'm going to start off with this center of the bike here. Okay. And then this is going, I'm going to draw, this is pretty light. I'm not sure. Yeah, we can kind of see it. And this is going to come off here. Then I've got my smaller wheel right here. A little small. Okay. And I'm going to just kind of, I know this is not going to be in perfect perspective, but that's okay. Blown out of proportion a little bit, but I want it to be big. What's a little too big? Your drawing does not have to be this complicated. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to decide, are you going to do straight lines that come out and then curves as you go in and then come back out? My suggestion to you is just kind of go with the flow with that. I'm going to start with doing this center tile, and I'm going to do straight lines as much as possible. We will see how this goes. I'm going to keep going. I think this is going to get a little complicated, but we'll see. I think it's going to be one of those things that I'm just going to have to go with the flow. See how it's starting to form that round feeling?